Welcome, come in. Today we're going to talk about what do Christians believe about deism, and does the book of Genesis comment on this topic? Well, stay tuned to find out. I'm Michele Silvernail. Thanks for joining me with my series Read Genesis with me. Grab a mug of something and let's dive in. Hey, and let's keep calm and enjoy life as we spend a few moments together. Shout out to Janet for the mug, by the way. Thanks. It's one of my favorites. Ants and mugs. So, what is the difference between deism and Christianity? Do these beliefs have anything in common? As a matter of fact, they do. But it's sort of like water and drops of cyanide have something in common. They are both liquids, but if you drink them, one brings life and one brings death. And that's how other religions compare to Christianity. They all have some truth in them, but one brings spiritual life and the others bring spiritual death. You wouldn't drink a glass of water with just 2 drops of cyanide in it. Don't drink of other philosophies that can't save you. So, deism says God created the earth. So do Christians. So far, so good. But deists believe God does not intervene in the operation of the world he creates. Nope. That's where we differ. Deists compare God to a clockmaker who winds up the clock and then leaves it to operate on its own. They say God created man and then left him to operate within the natural laws, not intervening. And my response to that is horse feathers. That thinking is the opposite of what we read in the Bible and the opposite of what I've experienced as a Christian. What we see in the Bible instead, and also in the book of Genesis, is a history of God involved in and operating in the world. Account after account of God interacting with Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Moses, Deborah, Daniel, David, and the list goes on and on and on. Then, of course, we have Jesus himself, who is the ultimate argument against deism. Maybe you've heard the story of the man looking out his window on a winter's day, and inside it's warm and toasty, and outside it's frigid, and he sees the birds outside, and he wishes there was a way to get the poor creatures into his barn, where they would find shelter from the cold. So he goes outside to tell the birds to go into the barn, but he is a higher life form, so the birds cannot comprehend. So next he takes a broom and he goes out to guide them into the barn and to shoo them in. But they only get more afraid and confused. At last the man says, if only I could become a bird, I could go to them and they would understand that I want to lead them to a place of warmth and safety. This is similar to what God did in Jesus. Jesus, the second person of the Trinity, took on human form so he could bring us to God, our place of shelter and comfort and salvation. So Jesus' incarnation is the opposite of deism. And personally, one argument I have against deism is I think mankind would have destroyed himself a long time ago if left to their own devices. Don't you agree? Think of all the crazies that have access to nuclear weapons. But I digress. If deism had a hymn or an anthem, I think it would be that Bette Midler song from the 1990s called From a Distance. Do you know the one I'm talking about? The song has a beautiful melody and Bette Midler has a great voice, but the message has always bothered me because it basically says, all this bad stuff is going on down here, war and hunger and disease, and God is just up there somewhere watching from a distance, unaffected, unconcerned, just yawning, waiting to see how it all pans out. And that is poppycock. What did Paul say in Acts 18:24? The God who made the world and everything in it, he is Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in shrines made by hands. Neither is he served by human hands, as though he needed anything, since he himself gives everyone life and breath and all things. From one man he has made every nationality live over the whole earth, and has determined their appointed times and boundaries of where they live. And he did this so they might seek God, and perhaps they might reach out and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. Again, that last verse, he is not far from each one of us. Now, people will say things like, the founding fathers were deists, George Washington was a deist. I think people say things like that and put it in Wikipedia to try to lend credibility to the false deist belief system. But I encourage you, when people or Wikipedia or whoever tries to label someone else, go and listen to that person's own words. George Washington credited God with intervening in battle when bullets went through his cloak but missed his body. He believed God was involved in the country's formation, which means he wasn't a deist. My question to you is, are you a deist? I don't know anyone personally who would profess to being a deist, but I do see people who act like they are deists. They're not professing deists, but practicing deists. Okay, what do I mean? People who believe, oh, God doesn't care what I do with all this free time, where I live, where I work, what I major in, who I marry, who my friends are, etc. They don't take their decisions, cares, and concerns to God. The book of Genesis and the Bible shows us we were created by God for his fellowship. That's why he gave his only begotten Son, because God so loved the world. In other words, God loved you. And God wants to be intimately involved in our lives and world. So I encourage you today, God knows your name. Don't let anyone pick your pocket. Jesus is Emmanuel, which means God with us. Jesus has not left the building. Reach out to him and he will be found by you. Keep connected and encouraged, friends. Bye-bye.